I know these things. I'm going to go really quickly through these first couple pages. Everything you need is already written here, so you don't have to write anything down. Yay. Unless you hear something that you love come out of my mouth and then write it down. Okay? When we're looking at pathological gait, again, just like we did in lab the other day, we want to look at our patient in a very systematic way. We're going to look at them kind of globally. You know, watch them as a whole first. Things that I tend to look at when I'm watching my patient walk as a whole first. Again, I'm not looking at their foot, their knee, their hip yet. I just want to look at them as a whole. I tend to look at their planes of motion. Gait is a triplanar activity. You agree? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. We have sagittal plane motion. That's them moving in a forward direction. We have frontal plane motion. Remember these dips and things and the side-to-side motion. Okay? There's normal motion that should occur in the frontal plane. We also have transverse plane motion. As I take a step forward, my pelvis is going to rotate to an extent. My trunk is going to rotate to an extent to counterbalance that. Okay? So I have motion occurring in all three planes. You guys already know what normal looks like. You see it every day. So one thing that really helps you when you're looking at somebody globally, if you notice a lot of frontal plane motion or a lot of transverse plane motion, more than you're used to seeing, something's wrong. Look for those pieces, okay? When most people walk, what we perceive the greatest amount is the sagittal plane motion. Gait is primarily a forward progression activity. You agree? Good. Do we have components of frontal and transverse? Yes. But they shouldn't be way obvious, okay? So that's one way when you look at somebody globally, if you really start to notice, you know, these things or a lot of this, something's wrong. Hone in on it then. So we look at them big picture, then we start to break it down piece by piece, okay? So again, do we see something that goes, I want to look at that closer. That's how we analyze gait, okay? So I kind of have all that there for you. There are things that happen with normal aging, unfortunately. Speed tends to decrease. Our stride length tends to shorten. Our step length tends to shorten. And our duration spent in double limb support increases. And we have a smaller swing to support phase ratio. Okay, so they're going to spend more time in stance. Remember, normal 60-40. You agree with me? Does that make sense when I say that? Okay. There are a couple of disease states that tend to be pretty common. So I want to explain those so you understand them when you see them, because you will. Our Parkinson's disease patients, they tend to suffer a lot from being rigid. Their body's stiff. It doesn't want to move very easily. Think of trying to bend a plywood board. That's kind of how their muscles and their body seems to get. It gets very rigid. Okay? We have a gait that they tend to have that we call a festinating gait. Okay? It tends to happen in this population because of their neurological disease process. Their cadence goes up, so lots of little steps. Okay? Their stride length is very short, so again, lots of little steps. Okay? They don't tend to have a heel strike or a push-off. They tend to be flat the whole time. Sometimes it's shuffly. Okay? And the other thing that happens is they lose arm swing. They really lose the ability to rotate the trunk, which is necessary. Okay? Now, one thing that will also tend to happen with these clients and these patients is their body, for some reason, starts to go faster than their feet. So that's part of the reason those steps, because they're not able, everything's so tight and rigid, that their center of gravity seems to go, and their feet can't catch up. So they'll have a tendency as they start walking that they might start out really good, and then it gets faster and faster, and they're just trying to catch up with their body. Okay? So, again, that was a huge exaggeration. But you're going to tend to see that. So when they have their little walkers, their feet might be back here, and their body's all the way up there in their walker. Okay? So they tend to get those really short fast, and they can't quite keep up. So you think they have falls? Yeah. Okay. So, because they can't get that stride. Okay, so that's a Parkinson's type gait. Again, I just want you to be familiar with it so when you hear it and see it, you're aware. The ataxic gait, have you guys heard that term yet? Okay, I see some nods, some no's. It's okay. Ataxic is really a cerebellar disorder. Our cerebellum, what does it control?
Coordination.
Yes, good. So have any of you ever partaken of maybe 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages and your balance becomes a little impaired? Alcohol impairs your cerebellar's activity. Okay? So, we sometimes call it the drunken gait. Okay? The coordination and the ability to balance is off. It looks like somebody drunk. Okay? And it's because of a cerebellar disorder. Your cerebellum is in charge of balance and coordination. So what's going to tend to happen is their base of support's going to widen. You're going to see more frontal plane motion. Okay? When we talk about that. Balance control problems. Drunk people don't fall down. Okay? Falls are pretty common. And again, like I said, that large side to sides, center of gravity kind of stagger. Okay? So foot placement isn't always the same. It's not consistent. Okay? A lot of control issues with that. Okay? So cerebellar disorders. We're going to talk some about these muscle weaknesses as we go through, but we're going to try some of these right now. Yay. Okay? So first one is our gluteus medius gait. Gluteus medius is a hip abductor. Do you guys still feel them? I think mine finally died down. Okay? So we're going to talk about what happens when he's weak. Kind of talked about it already, that ASIS is going to tend to drop. So our patients, what tends to happen is when they walk, and I always make my right side my weak side, I don't know. So when I take a step with my right leg, my pelvis is going to tend to drop. I'm going to tend to compensate by shifting my trunk over the other way. Make sense? Because otherwise, I fall over. So they tend to do that. So, yes? So my shoulders and everything goes to the right, my pelvis drops, so I'm concave on my right side, on the weak side, stance side, and convex on the other, yes? So as I walk, every time that happens, that hip just drops. And again, I'm really good at these. I've had a lot of practice. So I want all of you to stand up. We'll kind of scooch our tables a little bit to the middle so we can kind of make a loop, except for maybe that one back there, the traction table. And we're going to try some of these.